Hey, welcome to the replay. If you're watching the replay, I'm gonna just wait 1 second for a few people. Hey, Laura. Hey, you guys. Oh my gosh. Hey, Allie. Let's see. Who? Tamsin Reed. Hey, Tommy Sunshine Mama. Hey, thanks for finding me on Instagram. Hey, Manai Mausoleum. You guys, I cannot get this thing to stay up, but I really want it to stay up because I have such a cool thing to share with you today. You guys are gonna love this. But I have to pick up, hey Katie, I have to pick up kids from school in just a second. So, welcome to my house, and I have been telling you, hey Ashley, hey Sarah, you made it on! Jake and Sarah is my aunt, you guys. She has been missing my periscopes, and so she finally made it. Hey Tracy! Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. So, I will share with you what I think is the best parenting book I ever read. And if you have never, hey Lindsay, if you've never seen any of my periscopes, you don't know this, but I have a degree in child development. And so I went to school and I've read a lot of these books about children and parenting and all that stuff. That does not make me a perfect parent at all, at all, but I just wanted to give you guys some context to let you know that I've seen and read a lot of these books. Oh, good, Lindsay, just be a little sneaky. I'll make this quick so you can get back to work because like I said, I do have to pick up kids from school, but they're usually like the last kids to get picked up and like calling me from the office like they were yesterday because I was having too much fun at Disneyland. And I did not pick them up on time. Also, I made some friends on the tram, and I was like, we're just gonna hang out, and I'm just gonna chat with you all day, and I was totally late. And so, they know what to do. If they're the last ones, they just wait nicely in the office, and it's fine. But, so I've read a lot of these books, and I have this background. I also have a blog, which is ocbeautymom.com, and if you want more information or more tips like this, you can stick your email in there. I send out an email like once a week just to recap what I've done that week. So, for example, this week you'll be getting like some Disneyland tips, my favorite stroller, favorite baby carrier to go on outings like that. I think there's some makeup tips in there. I just got a call, and that's never happened to me before. I got a call in the middle of Periscope. My sister was just calling me. Are we still on? Is everybody still here? Like it if you're here. I think we're still on. Okay, so I'm gonna get right to it. That's where you can find more info on me or Instagram at ocbeautymom. And again, I love just sharing mom tips and what I know about having 5 kids and Orange County life, okay? So the best parenting book I ever read it is called, this is kind of a weird title, but it's so awesome. It's old. This is a book that was published in 1937 by a man named Dale Carnegie. And the book is called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it sounds like kind of a weird title, like, well, I already have lots of friends. I don't need to like win friends. Jake and Sarah, have you read that book? If you have read that book, let us know down below what you think about it. Trev's favorite book, yes. So, my question to you, before we begin, think about this. Are children people too? Yes or no? Children are people too. And if we can learn as parents how to influence our children in a good way, in an effective way, then I feel like that is gonna help us all be way better moms and dads. So, here's a few things that I'm gonna share with you. No, I'm not. I'm a 5-kid disaster mom. I should give you guys a tour of my house. It's such a mess right now. We're doing the whole Japanese organizing. We're all just upside down. So here's what I'm going to share with you from the book, and if you like this, I will email you. If you subscribe to my little email list, I'm going to be emailing out next week a link where you can buy the book and also get it for free if you want to like have a free download. Can you guys hear the baby? She's crying. Okay, so I just like wrote, this is one of the books that I took notes on as I was listening. Like it's one of those books that you want all the notes. Like I'm going to listen to it again for sure. So I'm going to tell you a quick story out of the book, and I'm going to read you a poem out of the book, and I'm going to tell you an experience I had utilizing what I learned from the book, and I was like, whoa. Okay, Manal Mausoleum, the book is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It was published in 1937. It is an old book. And in the language of the book, you can really hear that it's really old. It's kind of romantic and cool to listen to how people used to write and speak in the kind of more earlier 1900s. So here's a story that Dale Carnegie shares in the book. He has done extensive studies on an American president. If you're not from the United States, we're going to get a little American history lesson. I love American history. And one of my favorite presidents in our history of all time is absolutely Abraham Lincoln. And so the author of this book studied Lincoln's life, and he told this story in his book, and I don't want to miss any notes, so please excuse me if I glance down because I don't want to forget any of these details. So, President Lincoln was the president of our country during what we call the Civil War. If you are not American and you are on my scope, tap the thing so that I know how many people might not even know anything about this story, and I'll give more details, or if there's nobody, then I know I can skip over a little bit more. But during the American Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln was a president. Of course, he was sort of leading what's called the North, and he wanted there to be no slavery. And then there was people in the South who wanted slavery. And so that's why our country was fighting during this time. And so there was a general in the South named General Lee. And at one point in 1863, after one of the biggest and most deadly battles of the American Civil War called Gettysburg, they had a chance, the North had a chance to literally end the war. And what happened was between July 1st and 3rd, this huge battle happened, and thousands and thousands of men died. And it really was one of the biggest losses that our country's ever seen. And so General Lee, the commander in the South, found that he was trapped at the Potomac River, which is a river near Gettysburg. And he was trapped because there had been so much rain during this time that the river had swollen and it was flooded, and the troops from the South could not cross. So the North was coming down like this, and the South was like, oh, we've lost so many of our men. This is terrible. We're in a war. And so President Lincoln sent a message. He sent a letter to the North. And he said, hold on, let me make sure. So General Meade at the time was the general from the North. And General Meade was leading the North troops. And President Lincoln said, General Meade, attack now. We're going to end this war. Attack Lee's troops now. And do you know what General Meade did? Or what he didn't do? Any of you who know anything about American history probably can guess that General Meade did not attack. He did not follow Abraham Lincoln's orders. And he was literally in direct violation of the commander-in-chief's orders. And so he didn't attack. He said, well, we need to call a council of war. And he kind of was like, well, there needs to be red tape around this. And he kind of came up with some excuses. In the meantime, the water receded in the river, the South escaped, and the war was prolonged. And hundreds of thousands more lives were lost because of this. And so part of this, there's a quote from the book that President Lincoln literally said to one of his advisors, if I had gone up there, I'd have whipped him myself. And so he was so mad at General Meade for not following orders, for letting the South escape, and for prolonging the war. And quite literally, thousands of men died because of this decision. Now, what would you have done if you were President Lincoln? What do you think President Lincoln did? He actually wrote a letter. And And the book goes through, this actual letter was found in his things after President Lincoln was killed. And it is like still in a museum somewhere, but it's the most articulate letter. It says things like, I am distressed immensely that you did not follow orders. Like it's like the nicest letter you ever read. It's crazy how nice this letter is. And the crazier thing is that President Lincoln never even sent it. And so instead of just like reprimanding and getting after him, he didn't even send this letter. And after a few days and letting this sink in, President Lincoln decided, you know what? And some of his advisors asked him, well, what are you going to do about this general who's just going all rogue and not listening to anybody? And he says, you know, I was really upset, but I bet you if I had seen the blood and the killing and the violence and the pain of war on the front lines like he had just seen the last 3 days, solid, if I had lost friends and brothers and, you know, countrymen like he has lost in that moment, I don't know if I would have been so quick to attack again. In the mud, in the rain, in the storm, in the exhaustion and horror that was literally the Civil War in the United States. So he didn't do anything. He let General Meade continue to lead the North. And after that point, General Meade did an excellent job leading the troops, but it was just in this one moment where President Lincoln had to say, what's going through his mind? Why would he disobey these orders? Why would he do this? And truly, the consequences were absolutely life and death. And as parents, we don't have to deal with life and death like the President of the United States has to deal with all the time. And so I loved this story about avoiding the criticism, avoiding anger. And these are some of the ways that President Lincoln so effectively influenced people. Now, how does this relate to what we do as parents? And why am I sharing this with you? So, another thing that he shares in this book, you guys, this is such a small slice. You have to read this book. Wait, really quick before I do that, that is right. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. That's what he says in this book. It is such a good book. So here's the opposite of Abraham Lincoln, Mark Twain. If you guys are familiar with Mark Twain, tap the screen. And I want to see how many of you, we know Huckleberry Finn. We have all this good stuff from Mark Twain. All right, good. So he's totally famous, totally awesome, way important in American literature, right? And so at one point, he was writing his books and doing his big writing career, and he would send his books off to publishers, and editors from the publishers would send letters back to him with revisions and changes to his work. And at one point, the author, Dale Carnegie, quoted a letter that Twain wrote to one of his publishers. Oh, that's cool. One of his publishers saying something like, "Dearest so-and-so publisher, tell your editor that his changes can rot in his brain, which is clearly comprised of mush and soiled whatever." Like the worst insults ever. And so I guess Mark Twain's wife would intercept Mark Twain's letters out to his publishers all the time, and they never made it in the mail because she knew that he was just relentless in his criticism toward others. So that's just kind of two different styles. Now here's one last story, and then I'm going to share a poem with you. At one point, President Hoover, who was another president of our country, this is another story from there, took an airplane ride. And the plane was struggling and almost crashed. And they realized quickly after they got in the air that the plane had the wrong kind of fuel in it. And literally, they almost died and crashed in the plane. And the mechanic who filled the plane with fuel and made the mistake of putting the wrong fuel in, thought, oh, this is it. I am done. Like, I'm going to be in so much trouble. I can't believe I made that mistake. And President Hoover, Herbert Hoover. Yeah. He came down, survived the really rocky landing, making it back down. Hey, Miss Leah. And he, instead of condemning this poor guy, he put his arm around him and was like, I know that was just a mistake. We're fine. And I know you're never going to do that again. So just to make sure, I want you to fuel my plane every single time. Every time I come to fly in whatever airport they're at, I insist you have to fuel my plane. And how do you think that made the guy feel? And so these are just different ways that you can react to things. So now I just wanted to share with you guys a poem. This is a very old poem. It is in this book, but I loved it. I accidentally got kind of, hey, cool. I'm so excited that you're going to buy it. If you head to my blog and buy it too, I'm going to have a little bit more information about it and a good place to find this book for a good price. So this is a poem called, I printed out for you, Father Forgets. And you guys tell me as I'm reading this if you've ever felt this way as this father when you're hanging out with your kids. And so it says, this is from a man's perspective, again in the 1930s, so really old. So it says, listen, son, I'm saying this as you lie asleep, one little hand crumpled under your cheek, and blonde curls sticky over your wet forehead. I have broken into your room alone just a few minutes ago as I sat reading my paper in the library. A stifling wave of remorse swept over me. Guilty, I came to your bedside. There are things which I am thinking, son. I had been cross to you. I scolded you as you were dressing for school because you gave your face a mere dab with a towel. I took you to task for not cleaning your shoes. I called out angrily when you threw some of your things on the floor. At breakfast, I found fault too. You spilled things. You gulped down your food. You put your elbows on the table. You spread butter too thick on your bread. As you started off to play, I made for my train, you turned and waved a hand and called, "Goodbye, Daddy." I frowned and I said in reply, "Hold your shoulders back." Then it began all over again late this afternoon. As I came up the road, I spied you down on your knees playing marbles. There were holes in your socks. I humiliated you before your friends by marching you ahead of me into the house. Socks were expensive, and if you had to buy them, you would be more careful. Imagine that, son, from a father. Do you remember later when I was reading in the library how you came timidly with a sort of hurt look in your eyes? I glanced up over my paper, impatient at the interruption. You hesitated at the door. What is it that you want? I snapped. You said nothing, but ran across in one tempestuous plunge, threw your arms around my neck and kissed me. Your small arms tightened with affection that God had set blooming in your heart, which even neglect could not wither. Then you were gone, pattering up the stairs. Well, son, it was shortly afterwards that my paper slipped from my hands and a terrible sickening fear came over me. What has habit been doing to me? The habit of finding fault or reprimanding. This was my reward to you for being a boy. It was not that I did not love you. I don't believe I'm getting emotional. It was not that I did not love you. It was that I expected too much of you. I was measuring you by the yardstick of my own years. There is so much that was good, fine, and true in your character. The little heart of yours was as big as the dawn itself over the hills. This was shown by your spontaneous impulse to rush in and kiss me goodnight. Nothing else mattered tonight. Son, I have come to your bedside in the darkness. I have knelt here ashamed. There is a feeble atonement. I know that you would not understand these things, which I have told you in the waking hours. Tomorrow, I will be a real daddy. I will chum with you, suffer when you suffer, and laugh when you laugh. I will bite my tongue when impatient words come. I will keep saying as if it were ritual, he's nothing but a boy, a little boy. I am afraid I have visualized you as a man.
Yet as I see you now, son, crumpled and weary in your bed, I see that you are still a baby. Yesterday, you were in your mother's arms, your head on her shoulder. I have asked too much, too much. So, I can't believe I'm crying. This is just what happens when you're a mom and you have moments when you are like, I'm just going to use my pajama pants. They're on the floor to dry my eyes. Okay, so Dale Carnegie adds in this, at the end of this poem, this is Dale now, saying, instead of condemning and criticizing others, kids, I would say this, our own kids, perhaps it would be better to try and understand them, to try and figure out why they do what they do. That's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness rather than contempt. And so Dale goes on for this entire book on how to teach and influence people and even your children for good, and to not be what I know, in my modern child development science land, to be very authoritarian because I said so when I'm your mom type of a style. And so I love this book for the perspective that it gave me on my kids are people too. They have feelings, they're little. It's our job as moms. Allie, I'm going to blog about it, so head over to the blog, but it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And so, anyway, I'm sorry I kind of just... You guys, if you know any moms who have moments like this, would you do me a favor and share this with them? Share this broadcast with them, and because I just feel like we as moms need to connect and really strengthen and lift each other up, and that really is the point of this blog that I started. And I do love makeup and beauty and life in Orange County, and it's wonderful, and I love sharing it with you. But what I love most of all about my life is that I can be a mom. And so anything I can do in mom land to be better at that, I want to do it. And so I felt for me that this book and this perspective that he was able to teach me through this book, even though it's super old, it is just an absolute classic, and it has helped me so much. And I hope that you guys will head over to ocbeautymom.com and share the post, share this broadcast. I will do a little Instagram post on this, and we can get the word out to our fellow moms as far as understanding why our kids do what we do, why people in general do what they do, and that hopefully that will help you. I'll share one last little story. There's a lot of techniques, right? Actual things that you do and say, and ways that you say it. Awesome, Lindsay. To influence kids. One example, there's a lot, but here's just one example of the types of things that you'll learn in this book. I wanted my kids to clean up their toys, for example. Normally, before I read this book, I would have said something like, Easton, Lola, please clean up the toys. Let's, get all these toys. I want them in the basket. Hey, you fix the pillows. You do the toys, and we have this little routine at night, which I'll have to Periscope someday, like our nightly routine. Hey, Bachelor Love. And so you just missed my cry fest. I just totally started crying over this book, so you'll have to watch the replay. So instead of saying, do this, clean up your toys right now, let's see it. Hey, how come you're not listening the first time? Let's go. Like that. Instead, and I learned this from the book, I said something about Lola. She's my 5-year-old. You are such a good organizer of the toys. And I know that Easton watches you to learn how to pick up the toys. Do you think you could be the toy cleaning up leader today? And can you show him how to do it? And then she's like, yes. And then she goes, and she's cleaning up the toys. She's telling Easton, you get that one, Easton. I'll get this one. Come on. And I'm like, you are so, or I'll say something like, wow, you are such a fast toy cleaner-upper. And I bet you that Easton, you and Easton might not, you might beat each other. Like, I'm going to see how fast he's going to do it and how fast you're going to do it. Can you show me how fast you can do it? And then you get this from my son. And he gets his flash hands ready. And he goes and he cleans up all the toys at lightning speed. And I wasn't yelling at them. I wasn't bossing them around. I wasn't saying, because I said so, do it now, you know. And so those are just, there's so many more tips like that. But I got to get going right now. The bell's going to ring at my kid's school in like 3 minutes. So I just want to thank you guys for sharing this little, these stories with me. I love reading. I love books. I haven't always been this way, but the past like year or so, I have just been an absolute sponge of books like this. So I'm going to try and, I have so many books that I want to share with you. And so keep tuning in for those. And I just, want to thank you again, and check me out again on Instagram at OCBeautyMom or OCBeautyMom.com for links and where you can get these books, okay? I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you soon. Next week, I have a lot of exciting things planned. Okay? Happy weekend, too.